Good night to our viewers out there. Good night to everyone on our show and on our panel. Let me start tonight by wishing all a wonderful night. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, good night. And let me give credit to Devin, to Kumar, Nohar Singh, and the Globespan team who's all working behind the scenes to make tonight possible. Ladies and gentlemen, the political fortune of many parties are in the making. On one hand, we have the PPP and PNC, who has been at it for over 50 years. And on the other hand, we have two sets of small parties, two distinct sets of small parties. We have those small parties that are already part of the APNU-AFC coalition, parties like the WPA, the JFP, the AFC, etc., etc. And then we have even more small parties like A New and United Guyana, Change Guyana, LJP, and many others. While we'll be keeping this discussion of the small parties in its core for another discussion night, tonight we also want to have a look, because these parties will in the main challenge the status quo of the larger parties. That is, the newer set of parties that will obviously have an impact on the PPP and the PNC. You see, the WPA and others have already announced that they will go into the election being married to the PNC, AFC, etc. So, the PNC and PPP are probably the most affected by the subtraction of votes that will go to the small parties. And to point out the obvious, one could say that the PPP may perhaps be the most affected, since the coalition already has the PNC as its head. And the coalition is a coalition of small parties with the PNC. So tonight we want to talk about how this changing landscape is affecting the main political players, the PPP and PNC, how these parties see themselves approaching the elections with these threats. Tonight we talk politics. And let me say that initially we had expected Mr. Aubrey Norton to be here tonight. Unfortunately, he is still up in Linden and is unable to get a decent internet connection to join or to be with this discussion. And so tonight we have with us Mr. Cleveland Drepaul, an activist who has been supportive of a development of Guyana under the vision of the APNU-AFC government and supportive of the PNC's vision of its development of Guyana. And we also have Mr. Ozzy Rodgers, who has been an activist and who supports the positions of the People's Progressive Party Civic in Guyana. We also have Mr. Collison, Brian Collison, who was with us last week. As a background, Mr. Cleveland has been in his previous life in Guyana. Before he migrated, he was a part of the Hoyt administration. He served Guyana there, and he was an active youth leader at the University of Guyana during his youthful days. He is certainly an older youth now, ready to give us his insights into the political scenario. Mr. Brian Collison is a former analyst that worked with Bank of Guyana and also with Bank of New York Mellon. He is now more of an activist and a social worker, giving his support also to realizing the dreams of the APNU-AFC government and the PNC in its core. And Mr. Ozzy Rodgers has been, I think, well known across Guyana. He has been a radio announcer and also a broadcast personality who has made himself popular through his humility, his charm, and of course all the work he has done in many, many areas. Gentlemen, welcome to tonight's show.
Thank you very much.
The current political situation, let us start with that. Here is what I have, and I'm going to direct this question for you three to cogitate and to bring your points on. We have a crucial situation in Guyana presently. Elections are due on the 2nd of March 2020. According to our constitution, the parliament ought to have been dissolved 3 months prior to the elections. Today is the 4th of December 2019. We're wondering whether there will be elections on 2nd of March 2020 because Parliament has not been dissolved. Now, According to Says Gunraj, who I spoke to just now, $8 billion is already, Says Gunraj is a commissioner at GCOM, $8 billion in funding is already fully available to GCOM. And earlier today, I think Mr. Vincent Alexander had confirmed on Demerara Waves that he thinks that there is sufficient funds. So it cannot be now for funding purposes that Parliament is ongoing. Gentlemen, what are your reaction to this? What is this that we see as a very critical situation in Guyana, that Parliament has not been prorogued, Parliament has not been dissolved, and elections is supposed to be held within 3 months? There is a reason why GCOM has a full 3 months to run off elections. Any one of you can go first.
I think Parliament will be dissolved. It's a constitutional requirement, and that requirement will be met. Money is available, like you correctly said. I think I read that briefly saw a caption some in the newspaper addressing that issue. But on the other hand, I think there was a need for the opposition to return to Parliament for that parliamentary function, the constitutional function, to take place. I cannot explain why that has not happened, but I think it's the intention of the current government to ensure that elections are due. The elections that are due will be held, because the time frame has been announced. So it's a question of when will the Parliament get together to be dissolved and the date announced. Hopefully, this will be soon. I have faith in that that would happen. My friends may think otherwise.
Okay. Brian, we can come to you next since you're in the middle.
Okay, all right. Yeah, in my view, it's a complex constitutional question. Maybe the authorities are waiting on word from GCOM, so that they have the clearance to go ahead and dissolve Parliament. So you need that clearance. The president can unilaterally decide, that they're ready. They have to give him the word that they're ready. Then he can say, okay, Parliament will be dissolved. So I don't know, given that we are 2 days over that 3-month criteria, if the elections will be held on the 2nd of March still, or if it might go back a couple of days. So, those are constitutional legal questions that I cannot answer. So I would leave that for the lawyers, let them sort that out. We have many lawyers, and then we have the Caribbean Court of Justice who can sort out those questions.
Okay. Ozzy, before you get on, let me say that I have extended an invitation to Mr. Anil Nandalal, and I know Mr. Nohar Singh has also extended an invitation to members of the government to come and discuss that same matter to one of our shows, the constitutionality and stuff like that. So, Ozzy, you take it from there.
All right. So, my take on this is that once the government of Guyana fell on the 21st of December 2018, certain things were supposed to already been put in place in preparations for elections. And once that did not happen, that is what put us in our current political situation. The government of Guyana totally disregarded the Constitution and what should have done right after the fall of the APNU AFC government. Once they disregarded that, that is what brought us into this current situation that we're in, because we saw maneuvering in the courts to delay the system, to delay the constitutional responsibilities. We saw the government were doing all these different kind of maneuvers through the courts in different places, and that is what brought us here. I would want to think that the government, the APNU AFC government, is happy with the current situation that we're in because it prolongs their life in government.
Gotcha. So I'll come back to you, Cleveland. Cleve, here is the situation. Going to what Brian said. My concern is the Constitution is there. a lot of Guyanese have been texting, calling, and telling me that their concern is that given that Commissioner Says Gunrad said that there is $8 billion there, given that Vincent Alexander said he don't think there is an issue with funding anymore, funding it is not an issue. As you said, Brian and Cleveland, we cannot interpret the Constitution for them, but obviously the moral obligation is that if you think you're holding on for GCOM is not running it. It's the president that has to call an election, not GCOM.
Correct.
There I have to make an interjection.
Yeah.
Because GCOM has to advise the president when it's ready. I remember a couple of months back, it was Lowenfield who was setting for, I think he's a CEO or something. He
Chief
was setting
Elections
out,
Officer.
Yeah, CEO.
Keith Lowenfield.
Yeah, Keith Lowenfield set out a work program to get people trained and a whole list of things. When he is ready, I think he has to advise the chairman or chairwoman there so. And when they're constitutionally ready, and then they will advise the president, and he will then announce a date.
No, sir.
They have to. I think that's what the Constitution says.
The Constitution
GCOM
does
has
not
to advise
say
the
that, sir.
president.
The Constitution does not say that.
Okay.
The Constitution
Right.
gives the president the power to call in elections, and GCOM has to get itself in the state of readiness by that time. The president of Guyana is an executive president, sir.
The president GCOM has to say. I remember the last time they had that discussion. GCOM has to advise the president that they're ready.
That again was a maneuver to delay the process, to prolong the life of the government. All right, GCOM, sir, I'm saying to you, the president after, yes, sir. After,
So
let me just get this point in. Let me get this point
Go
in.
on.
Once the government fell, the president calls and set an election date, and GCOM is required to get itself in a state of readiness by that date.
So on that question, where would the list that you're talking about, well, you're talking about elections, do you have a list that is ready? So you give 3 months and you can have all these things done?
Sir, if we can take the situation in the United Kingdom, for example. All right, the government fell, or the prime minister dissolved parliament. The elections body there has to get itself ready for the polls when the polls are called, not the other way around. Not the elections body.
Already announced by March. Okay, so it's the readiness because they're trying to sort out the list and a number of things. You already announced by March. They should be ready.
All right,
That's already said.
let me go.
Go ahead.
First,
Brian, let's have your take, and then I'll interject with
we
regards
have a
to
chairman
the
of elections
Constitution
commission,
itself.
independent, who person was agreed on by the leader of the opposition and the president. That person has to make a pronouncement that, and she keeps saying this particular word, she's only going to do the election when they're credible. What's the point of having elections and it's not credible? And you're comparing Guyana with the United Kingdom. The funding mechanisms of the two countries are completely different. Funding for elections commission in Guyana is dependent on a lot of different political, conditionalities, right? That doesn't happen anything. So those are things that has to be set in place for it to be automatic. The president's elections be ready. It is never like that in Guyana.
So you're telling me that if the president had followed the constitutional requirements after the fall of the government and announced an elections in 3 months, we could not have had a credible elections in 3 months?
On which list? On that list?
Huh? The same list that's being used now.
So, gentlemen, let me interject here. So, here is what I've studied law. I'm not a qualified lawyer like the jurists out there, the respected jurists, but I've studied law. And I think that a lot of people's position to you three are that, look, the Constitution has clearly stated that the president shall call election. That's one. Two, that they're following a loss of confidence 3 months later, elections shall be called, which means GCOM must always be ready from constitutionally from day 1 or day 0. GCOM must always be ready to have an elections within 90 days.
Yes, sir.
That's sacrosanct. That's written in stone in the Constitution. The fact that GCOM was not ready speaks a lot, and in my own mind, it speaks to whether it's accusation of whoever was the head of chairman as being, doing this nation a disservice.
There was no chairman.
Is up for discussion.
I was going to say something.
But no,
there was no chairman.
We need to add your.
So here's
GCOM
the
should be ready.
question. So here's the question. Yeah. So here's the question I want to bring to you. There was no chairman. The president of Guyana appointed a chairman unilaterally.
Unilaterally, sir.
Against the advice of the Chief Justice. That matter went to CCJ. The chairman was then not a chairman anymore. Meanwhile, the time is going by. Now leave all of that aside. Just put all of that behind us. It's water under the bridge. For me, my question is, December 2nd, December 3rd, 2019, Parliament should have been dissolved. President has to call elections, not Madam Chairman.
No, but there's a question here that is.
Madam Chairman has basically said, yes, go on.
My comment is the commission should have met. How could GCOM be ready when the commissioners are not meeting? They had an obligation to meet, which they reneged on as a function. They reneged on their function to meet and discuss these problems, to get GCOM ready so they can advise the president. And that's a failure on their part. That's why we're here. Or one of the reasons, I should say, why we're here. And the whole reason. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay.
Well,
I do know that since this chairman is in place, there have been meetings. I don't think there is a problem with the commissioners not meeting. In fact, one of the things that I think has been going wrong at GCOM is that the commissioners, from both sides are making the headlines and not the PR of GCOM. So, but it is good that the commissioners are coming out, because the PR would basically say what's their formal position. From Vincent Alexander, we are learning things. From C.S. Gunraj and B.B. Shadiq and the other people, we are learning things. So it's good that the commissioners are speaking. But as far as and going back to Lowenfield, I think Lowenfield and the PR had said that GCOM was ready for elections way back when. The point that I think I want to have a position on that I don't is, when will Parliament be dissolved? Because here's what happened. And this will bring me to my next topic. A couple of days ago, this government of Guyana announced that it was terminating various heads of government, heads of mission. Right? Now, if the cabinet is not supposed to be there, if Parliament was supposed to be dissolved, how then we are taking such executive action that Cleveland, here is my question to you and Brian particularly. Are we not setting a dangerous precedence for future governments?
It's an interim government, but there are some functions that have to be carried out. We should we should admit that, because there's no country without a government. No country can function without a government.
Correct.
Whether there's a cabinet, per se is a cabinet. I can't say a cabinet is functioning per se, but decisions have to be made. Financial decisions and other critical decisions.
I want to ask you a question.
Let's assume there's a crisis, for example, Venezuela is threatening. What would be done if there's no government?
I agree, but remember, should you then be terminating heads of missions? Should you then be signing major contracts? Should you then be order?
I want, you said it's an interim government, but is your government operating as though it's an interim government? It's an illegal government, sir. You know why it's an illegal government? It's an illegal government
In his mind.
because
In his mind.
in my mind, and also based on the constitution, if there are certain constitutional requirements that was not met by certain constitutional deadlines, then the government becomes illegal.
Interim.
Let me go.
There is
Let me go.
a position.
Your government is not operating
No,
as though it's
hold on.
interim.
Do you know about interim government? You know
Your
that,
government does not accept that
No,
it's
no,
an interim
let me go.
government.
We
Aubrey
have-
Norton
So
went on.
No, we have a Caribbean Court of Justice, the highest
So
score,
Cleveland, before
the highest score that we can
before
ever
you
go
answer
to.
Brian, Brian, hold before you go. Cleveland, are you saying that the government is an interim government?
That's the last position, I think, from the court.
From the Caribbean Court, from the
Yeah.
CCJ.
Is the government accepting that the
CCJ.
government is an interim
CCJ.
government?
There must be a government, and it has
They
to
must-
be from government.
that's the word
Aubrey
of the
Norton
CCJ.
did not say that.
So
I'm not
That's the
Aubrey
word.
Norton, I was
We're-
looking for Aubrey.
we're-
That's
He
the word of the
speaks
hold
for
on.
your party.
We're not denying. Hold on. I don't think anybody is denying that there needs to be a government. Nobody. The Constitution provides that the president will only demit office upon the swearing in of the other president.
That's it.
Or his own swearing in back. So there. But I think the word you have used here, Cleveland, is interim. I don't think this government. I don't think President Granger has accepted
My point
that is
exactly.
his status. Tell you what. Let's take Brian. I'm going to start with you when we come back. Let's take a couple seconds commercial break, and we'll be right back on this hot topic of the status of the government of Guyana
All right.
and also the contracts that it's entering into.
Globespan's professional platform is now available for rental. Create your own content, promote your business, and reach hundreds of thousands of viewers in Guyana, United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Globespan gives you the ability to interact with viewers and guests to reach the multitude. Contact sales at globespan247.com for more information.
Support Globespan 24/7 initiatives by sponsoring our programs. Our goal is to bring all sides to the table, and with your help, this can become possible. With your support, we can shape a greater nation together. Contact sales at globespan247.com for more information, or inbox us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Thank you. We are back. So here is what. The conversation we left off just before the commercial break is, Cleveland, you have said that the government is an interim government. My question has been, one, should an interim government be terminating heads of missions? Should the interim government be firing, sending off on retirement the Director General of the Foreign Affairs Ministry? Should the interim government be entering into contracts? Now, Brian, you also mentioned that the CCJ determined that the government must be in place. So yes, I agree. If I quote Anil Nandalal, I think in today's newspapers, he said that it was because of the judicial benevolence, to use his phrase, by the CCJ, that the government remains in place. And that is fine. We all agree with that. But my point is, strangely, the Director General of the ministry, one of the most important ministries of Guyana, is now pending reassignment. Basically fired and maybe rehired in another name. She will not return to that portfolio, which has been scrapped and a PS named in her place. So let's get to this discussion again. Should an interim government be doing this, be terminating heads of missions and be entering into contracts? And the other question I want to pose specifically to you, Cleveland and Brian, if it were the PPP government in office, would you have accepted this status quo?
Do you want me to go first?
As an interim government,
No,
you mean?
Sure.
Let me go.
As an interim government.
First, I don't have all the information, so I don't know why some of those decisions were taken. So I can't make any pronouncement on that. But during the time of the PPP government, when they had prorogued Parliament, many of the same things that are happening now had happened before. I mean, like, the head of the central bank was appointed 6 months or so before the elections, and many of the same things that are happening now had happened before during the time of the PPP. I don't have all the information, so I can't say why some of these steps are being taken. I mean, it's for the prerogative of the people in power to makes those decisions. I don't have the information.
Okay.
Well,
Cleveland, your comment?
yeah, well, my comment would be, well, insufficient information as well. However, I don't think people have been fired as you categorize it. But I think a government has the right to restructure or reshuffle. An interim government can still perform certain critical functions.
Critical functions.
Yes, critical functions.
Critical is the operative word.
Okay, right. And in this case, with a focus on foreign investment, oil, and all of that, in my mind, I'm not speaking for the government, it may very well be a restructuring of the ministry in that direction to focus on investment. I cannot justify what is happening in terms of contracts with ambassadors, nor with what is happening with Ambassador Waldo. But a president has the prerogative, I would say, to make those decisions based on the advice given by his minister.
Correct. But the other question that I think would be, Ozzy, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to come on just now, Ozzy.
No problem.
But the other question that tags along with that, Cleveland and Brian, is that we all want to see good governance. So this is not an attack. It's basically an analysis of what's happening, because my fear is the matter of precedence. The matter of precedence. So the question that goes further, when you dabble in employment or unemployment practices, and you dabble in contracts and all of these things, days after Parliament's supposed to have been dissolved, are you not then setting a stage where those same people you are hiring under these umbrella suspicious circumstances, you're basically putting those people under such stress that if there is a change in government, they will be under so much suspicion for their loyalty and for their professionalism that you're basically setting them up as lambs to the slaughter?
Well, I'm not sure. I would disagree somewhat with that, because I can tell you, when this government came into office, we had Mr. Ramatar's, the former president's daughter, was the head of the gold board, and the government didn't do anything, to remove her until something, suspicious took place. So it depends on the government of the day, how they act, whether those people, whether they will, release people because on the basis of a whim, or whether they will follow all the professional norms and employment practices of the day.
Okay.
For a comment,
Ozzy, I held you back. I held you back a little while, Ozzy.
Yeah.
Plan, you go first, and then Ozzy will take it there.
Okay, my point is that with this last change of government, as there are still a number of persons who remain from the previous administration in positions of, maybe because of their expertise, they have not been rolled out, and they're still there unless, like Brian said, something happens. And I can go further back. In '92, in the change of government, I recall in the transition, I was a public servant. My last position, even though seconded there, was I came into the office of the president. I worked there on the height as a public servant. And in the transition, I was told by the incoming HPS, among others in his team, you have to go. That was said to me, and I was a public servant. And I recall other public servants who were unjustifiably sidelined. I don't want to use my case as an example. However, I think the days of those kind of practices should be long past.
You
I've
cannot
not seen that repeated this current administration unless there's corruption or some cause.
So
for cause.
I don't have all the facts of what happened in 1992, but based on what I'm picking up from what you're saying, sir, you are accepting and admitting you work for Hoyt. You did not work for the government of Guyana. You're saying that. The way you say it alone already said that.
Servant, you know what I mean?
All the time that I sit here and listen to you, all right,
That's
you
correct.
say you work for Hoyt.
Yes.
When
Hoyt
I was
administration-
employed at the National Communications Network, I did not work for Jagdeo. I did not work for Donald Ramatar. I worked for the government of Guyana. And when I go to the radio station and I turn on the microphone, I was doing the government of Guyana's work and not Mr. Jagdeo or Mr. Ramatar's work.
Come in.
All right? So
That's a political point. I said I work for the Hoyt administration.
No, sir, you say you work for Hoyt.
Well, you can interpret how you want. That's a matter for you.
You three gentlemen, you three gentlemen have
It don't make any difference.
you three gentlemen,
Say again?
right? You three gentlemen have an experience that I don't. That is, you're all living and working in the United States of America.
Yeah.
What happens when the Democratic government changes to Republican?
Good question.
Now, presidents have a right.
Yeah, but like,
They have a right to appoint their team. But, like in the case of public servants, like I'm reminding my my good friend over
Public
here.
servant like Donna
I'm a public
Ramatar's
servant.
daughter at a semi-autonomous body.
Well, I'm dealing with me. I'm not dealing with her.
We-
Give me
we
a chance
brought
to-
it up.
Give me a chance to
I
explain
will.
me.
Okay, sir,
I
go ahead.
came in as a public servant to the office of the president, seconded to the office of the president. I was told by the incoming HPS, you have to go. Similarly with Aubrey. Aubrey, not, I think it was at the office.
no,
the
foreign affairs
Ministry.
is a,
Yeah.
in fact, the foreign
I didn't
affairs was,
expect that. My case went to court by President Hoyt. He took that up, but I left. I was told to go and I left.
in
You
fact,
know, you can't argue my case. I need to talk my case.
I'm not arguing your
No,
case.
but you're
I'm
trying to-
saying what you said,
you're
sir.
trying to draw a
You
parallel
said
between what you did.
You said that you work for Hoyt.
Yes,
I am saying that
you're deliberately leaving that out.
Right?
Administration.
You did not. We could go back on the tape. You never said administration.
by saying
and that
that.
is why I don't. That's why I said in the when I started my
Stop the
my
nitpicking.
little
I
thing.
began by saying that I work for the Hoyt administration.
and
The
to
mere
court.
idea that
And
you
it
were
went to court.
saying
it
it,
went to court.
I'm a public servant.
it's there on tape, sir.
Don't
So-
You did say the
here,
public servant.
Let me ask you for a position on this.
Yeah.
Would you be opposed to a new government changing all the critical persons holding government offices?
Political appointees? Civil servants?
Political appointee.
Well, I wouldn't carte blanche say that. Technocrats are important. You need technocrats. Guyana with his brain drain over the last 30, 40 years can ill afford that kind of stuff. That's why all of us are out here. Because polarization in politics and excluding people don't help. It does not help.
Correct.
We need all our skilled people.
But
In fact,
wouldn't let us say, Brian, I'm gonna come to you immediately with this question. Let us say Brian Collison wins the next election in Guyana. You become the president, and Ozzy is heading he is permanent secretary at a critical let us say public security. Would you not want that you are assured of his loyalty despite his technocratic qualifications? You want his loyalty, you want a technocrat that will share your vision. Would you not want to have a say on his appointment or non-appointment thereof? Brian,
there are many critical positions. You know, the government should have a say in who they want in many of the really critical positions. They have to carry out their policies, their programs, so you don't want somebody to sabotage, you know, your policies and your programs and so on. But what has happened in Guyana, especially with the last PPP government, they did wholesale massacres of, you know, reams of people. Foreign affairs, they just clean out, you know. The GRA, they just clean house, you know.
Show
what
us
you need to do.
the evidence. You're gonna bring forth a person like Aubrey Norton to say
I'm not
that he
talking
was
about Mr. Norton.
unjustly
No, I'm
removed
not-
from
I'm
the
not-
Ministry of Foreign Affairs
I'm not
when
talking
the government changed. Are you serious, sir?
I'm not talking about. Is you bring Mr. Norton in?
No,
Why
you
stop
did.
it?
Sorry, he did.
Okay.
so Brian,
No,
Brian,
in fact, here, let me say this too. Let me say this too. I wasn't really steeped into politics before, but when the PPP government came in, and I mentioned it the last time, you know, they wholesale just try to weed out a whole set of people, regardless
That's
of
not
the allegiance.
true. That's a
I experienced
PNC
that.
propaganda.
No, I experienced it personally, and I know thousands more like me
No, but-
experience that personally.
yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree, right?
Personally, I
let us just
experienced that.
let us not argue over the point. Here is my logic question to you. Here is my logic question to you. Let me use Ozzy. Ozzy Rodgers is working as a technical advisor to the Minister of Home Affairs. Brian Collison becomes the president of Guyana, and you put Cleveland as the Minister of Home Affairs. What happens to Ozzy? Would you be angry or upset that Ozzy has to go because he's been there 20 years under a Mahadeo government? Will you still trust him to share your vision because he didn't vote for you? He campaigned for you. He went on all the campaign stages and rallied against you. Will you still put him to be your permanent secretary?
Well, this is the thing. As a public servant, you should not be doing that. I mean,
Correct.
a public servant
You
should not be doing that. If you're a public servant, you're doing that, you're exposing yourself that you're not, objective
which is
and
why
professional.
I was surprised that our
You should
friend
not-
on the other side
Yeah.
would bring Aubrey Norton as a case in point.
Political appointees, I said, is a different thing.
So was Aubrey Norton a
Technocrats-
political appointee or not at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1992?
I don't know. I know
Okay.
he was a public servant.
Okay, so
he was
then
working
that's-
at the UN desk. That's what I know.
So-
I don't know his appointment.
So let's.
but I know he
But
was
let's come
sidelined.
back. Let's come back to the main core of one of the discussion points we have. That is, if we are arguing on one hand, the government may have the right to select the kinds of persons it wants,
The head.
especially in technocrat position,
Technocrats, yeah.
right? Then is the current work of the current interim government therefore not an enemy to itself? It is appointing a permanent secretary as an interim government days after when the parliament should have been dissolved, creating a new permanent secretary's position in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and appointing a PS. Now, isn't this government setting up that poor person for a serious assessment going into a political season?
What is a public service appointments? I mean, it should be observed by incoming government, whether the current government remains in power or the new government that comes in. Those should be honored because those are public service appointments. And we should not have political decisions made about their future. And this has been the practice in most of these third world countries, Guyana included. The last government and previous governments have done that. Dismiss public servants, challenge them and lose.
Cleveland,
Not everyone
but
took
you're
their
not-
cases to court.
no, but you're not
People
being
walk away.
kind to what's happening across the world. Look at what's happened in the US. When, to his credit, when Bush came on, that surge of drain the swamp and clean Washington, D.C., I mean,
Yeah,
he
you got
had to
Trump,
make
yeah.
serious replacements, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't blame a government for ensuring that persons in certain positions
The heads.
share its vision.
No, I don't mind
And
the head.
if
That I agree with.
But the lower level.
That I agree
but
with.
when you're going to the lower level people.
I mean, I agree with
So
you.
let's talk.
Loyalty,
So let's talk about the permanent secretary.
loyalty to the leadership or the vision of the government. Yes, I can understand that, but I don't think that should transfer to the civil servant. The civil service is a
Understood.
different ball game.
Understood. Let's talk particularly about the permanent secretaries because they're supposed to be technical. They're the ones,
Run the
in my
ministries,
view, should be running the
administration.
government now.
Yes, that's what their function is. Run the
They're the
government.
ones should be running the ministries now, right?
Yep.
Do you agree? They're the ones should be running
Sure,
this
sure.
They
government
They're
now.
they have the administrative
They're
responsibilities of the
accounting
ministry.
officers. Accountability is their job.
Correct.
So they
Correct.
should be divided outside of the political realm, even though they take instructions from the minister who is political. They carry out the
Good.
vision
And I
of the
think
government.
this current government had severed, terminated, Brian, as you said, the PPP had terminated certain persons who they felt were on the party line and on the rally campaign stages and so forth. Now, here is the other question that we started this discussion with. If we have an interim government, human resource appointment aside, should the government be entering into major contracts, multi-million-dollar contracts, that is in non-critical areas, that it's not oil and gas, it is not Venezuela, it is not some something that is a threat to our life and our welfare as a nation, should the government or should any government be at this stage, 90 days to go for an election, should they be entering into contracts? Ozzy, you go first.
I don't think so. I think that once the government is an interim government, it should be operating as though it is an interim government. If the government is confident that they are going to be retained after the next elections, why not put all of those decisions and plans and programs for your new tour? Why not do that, so that you don't have anybody that is going to get up and say, well, you know that you're doing this because you're trying to position certain people in certain places. You know, I have seen, and I'm just going to go back a little bit, but I have seen people that are saying that the government, with the removal of the Director General at Foreign Affairs, the government is doing this in order to put one of their people in place, so that when the government change on March 2nd, they can cry witch hunt and all this kind of stuff. You know what is the excuse? We've read it. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is claiming that they are removing the Director General and making way for fresh, younger blood. At this, the 11th hour, we're 3 months away from an election. Are they serious?
No.
Well, Brian, I'll come to you next. But with that statement to Ozzy, that's the exact similar phrase that was used with the replacement of the heads of missions. That, you know, they're some of them have been there long. They're, you know, at that age, and new people need to be trained. But my question, Brian, to you: should that decision be taken 90 days before an election?
Well, again, as I'm going to say, I don't have all the information. Ozzy doesn't have all the information, and the government is in place. If somebody, I mean, the police has to function. If you break the law, you will be locked up. You know.
Yes.
If certain things happen, you will be removed.
Critical areas.
No, even if you break the law, whether it's critical or not, you will be removed.
The police function is a
you're
critical
assuming,
area.
You're assuming
Sir,
that you have the information.
Sir, no. I'm saying the police, we have common sense
No.
here. The police functioning every day, whether there's an emergency or not, is a critical service.
My point to you, sir, my point is this. You do not have the information. I don't know what's happening there.
How you know what I have?
You're assuming that he's assuming that everything is in order, and he's assuming that she's being moved for political purposes. Yes,
I am saying
that's an assumption he's making, but I don't have that information.
Because the moderator also said exactly what I said, and it's a position that's out there. It's a position that was said.
So you're suspicious. You're suspicious that
and
something is happening.
assuming we don't have the information. That's my point. You know,
Brian,
we do have the
Brian,
information.
let me say this. A
Brian.
statement from the ministry, I'm quoting
Yes, sir.
Demerara Waves, I'm quoting Newsroom.
And they're
A
reliable.
statement from the
Credible
ministry
sources.
did not reveal, a statement from the ministry did not reveal the identities of the diplomats or state how many of them will be recalled. This is a quotation now. Quote, as is well known, the tenure of an ambassador runs approximately 3 to 5 years. However, for a variety of reasons and factors, some of our ambassadors have been abroad for as long as 2 decades, the foreign ministry said. Quote unquote again, the situation has become an impediment to other younger and rising foreign service officers whose performance and professional competence might require that they should be appointed to the summit of the foreign service. Quote unquote again, it is the wish and expectation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that this statement on the ongoing exercise within the ministry will help to allay concerns and put to rest any and all surmisings or misrepresentations that have been arisen in public domain concerning this normal administrative undertaking. However, the minister is not on the normal ministerial portfolio.
Thank you.
So you're saying it's an illegal
So, Brian,
no,
there is the source.
No, hold on. No, you see, what newspaper said? You said Demerara Waves,
A news source.
a news source.
No.
Let me tell you something about the news.
Statement released.
No, hold on. Let me say something about a news source. Recently, I saw in the papers and the news sources in Guyana, they would make all these sensational claims. Then, even if it's wrong, they don't retract. No, let me speak. Let me speak. Like a month ago, I saw a source saying some connected person to the PNC was given 3,000 acres of land somewhere in Georgetown. Splashed all over the newspapers, all the main newspapers. On further research, it was done that it was a typo, and none of them even had the decency to say it was a mistake. So, but you know, so you got to be very careful about our news sources.
No,
Even when there's things you have to go and check it.
So
because,
I think we need to
you know,
clarify. So news source is
Yeah.
a news outlet.
No, he said them are waves.
Demra Waves is a news outlet,
Yeah.
and News Source is also a news outlet. Demra Wave is run by Dennis Shabral. News Source is run by Gordon Mosley. All right, News
So
Source.
you have credibility.
So Gordon Mosley is reporting this.
No, and the thing about in Guyana is that some of the things that pass as news in Guyana with no, you know, consequences. I mean, in other countries, if that happened, you'll be out of business.
Well, you
Yeah.
hope they should be impartial and fair.
Yeah.
And
You'll be out of
journalists
business.
should be impartial and fair. Of course,
News
there's
and the business of
editorial
rumors.
slant.
Yeah.
There's going to be an editorial slant, but factually, you should deal with facts. Let's deal with facts. You can have a spin on the facts, but facts should be facts.
Okay. But what I've quoted for you there, Brian, I've quoted verbatim, quote unquote, the statement from the ministry. Right? So that is not from Demerara Waves. That's quote unquote verbatim from the ministry.
And it hasn't
However,
been challenged.
So, however, let's go on with the discussion. So, I mean, it's been a good discussion because we have to understand that all of Guyana is looking on. Whether we are backing any of the small parties, PPP, PNC, whoever we're backing, everybody's looking on. Everybody's assessing for themselves what is happening. The key criteria that one would use is executive privilege. The government is in place, it exercises its executive privilege, but it's making decisions utilizing, you know what, Brian and Cleveland and Ozzy, my money, the taxpayers' money of this country is being used every day, and so we have a right to question it and to be concerned with what's happening. So here is another contract that we feel that has been sent to me. In fact, it just came into my inbox. The drones we have suddenly bought, and all of a sudden we find an urgent need to spend $180 million to buy drones. I think probably Venezuela or somebody is really next door trying to attack us. But for me, why the urgency? Where is the assessment? Where are all the studies? Why isn't it released to the public?
I would disagree with you on the importance of the drones. I think drones are critically needed in Guyana. We have the interior, a very large interior, a lot of crime. Venezuelans crossing the border, committing murder, you know, I mean, fishermen being killed at sea. There is a very critical need for some of that.
The crime situation is more prevalent in the city of Georgetown. All right, the drones are not critically needed at this time. Yes, sir.
Many people are killed on the high seas. You should leave them alone. People have been killed on the high seas up to like a month ago.
Yeah.
Brian,
yeah.
Let us be careful with a couple of things. One, I'm going to quote our crime chief. Yeah. Crime is down.
It is down.
Only according to the crime chief and Kemraj Ramjatan. Okay. According to the ordinary Guyanese people, crime is up.
Two, the drones cannot be manned from Georgetown into the interior or from Georgetown way down into where the pirates are operating in the seas. Right? And three, couldn't it wait 90 days?
Well, I mean,
no.
Is there a purpose? I don't know.
What's
the rationale?
Yeah, but security, I don't think it should.
I would say security.
Security, I don't think
a lot of drugs and gold running.
Yeah.
Been happening for years in Ghana.
Borders on the high seas.
And we know how reliable the border patrol and the border police are. involved. They are involved.
More than the
Guyana
high
has been
seas.
losing a lot of money. I think it's over 500 billion in that same mineral industry over the last umpteen years. I mean, this statistics quoted somewhere. I'm not sure
How many?
what I'm saying.
Venezuelan gangs crossing
Yes.
the border.
This has
killing
been
If you
happening
look-
all the time. Why
Yes,
wait
yes.
for the
So why-
11th hour?
If
Why
10 people
can't
are killed, then
More people
those
kill.
people's lives are not
Nothing
valuable.
should be done.
Yes, and of course, of
Nothing should
course,
be done.
of
Are you
course.
saying nothing
You
should
Those
don't.
people's lives are not
Drones
valuable.
alone
Fishermen
can't-
being killed. And
Sir,
more than
sir, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
Drones alone cannot solve crime or prevent crime. So you
helps.
need.
It gives you
It
at
helps.
least
It
information.
helps.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you know where
but
to
you do
go.
not need drones at this time. You do not need drones.
So
at
those
this
people's
time.
lives who are being killed is
It
it's
doesn't
worthless.
matter.
It's
But
worthless.
The drones cannot prevent
Okay, if it's
crime
only 10,
by itself.
3 months,
If
10
it was
lives.
only one,
Those lives are
if
worthless.
it was only one, it is.
If
it
it
is
saves one
important
person,
to us,
it is a good investment.
right?
I
It
think
is
it's
important to us.
It is
Yeah.
However,
important for your
the drones
security.
were not the most important thing for security today, right now.
Drones are important.
All
for
right.
Ghana.
Important for your
I
security.
differ strongly with
That's
you.
the
Because
weak
every
defense
life-
of your government.
I would differ on that too. Fishermen are being killed on the
Gentlemen.
seas. People are being killed.
So let me ask you
this
this.
point
Yeah.
about
Gentlemen.
the need for
So let me
drones
ask you
as
this.
against the human intelligence. which
Drones
has been
cannot
lacking.
Yeah.
Human
solve
intelligence has not
crime
been
by itself.
reliable.
Let us accept that position that okay, it's a security measure that is urgently needed. But mind my words before. Where is the report that gives that assessment that this thing is critical? Where is the report, the assessment that would have done? That's one. Number two, that I will ask, you have spent $180 million on the drones, but you know the company that supplied the drones? They never supplied anything else in their lives. They never did anything before supplying these drones.
Yep. Corruption. That's what it's called, sir. It's called
I don't-
corruption.
I don't have those
It
digits,
is
but
called
concerning-
creating a path for supporters and family members to benefit of the
Corruption.
government in
Don't-
this
don't
the
go on the question.
11th
Don't go there.
hour.
Don't go
Don't
there.
go to
Don't go
corruption.
corruption.
Don't
I would love for us to go
Don't
to
go
corruption.
Don't go there, don't go there.
I would love for us to
Brother,
go to
don't
Don't go
corruption.
there.
Pradoville.
I would love for us to go to
Don't
corruption.
Don't talk
Don't
about
go
it.
there.
Exactly.
I would love for us to go to
Gentlemen,
corruption.
gentlemen,
You know.
When you're ready, let me know.
Don't go
Here
there.
is one.
There's a guy who's working
Here-
off.
here's one.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Come on, man.
PS
Don't go
of the
there,
president.
Charlie.
Don't go there.
Don't go with the corruption thing.
Show us.
Let's take
Go ahead.
let's take a commercial break, and when we come back,
Yes.
we're gonna interrupt. Over to you then.
Globespan's professional platform is now available for rental. Create your own content, promote your business, and reach hundreds of thousands of viewers in Guyana, United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Globespan gives you the ability to interact with viewers and guests to reach the multitude. Contact sales at globespan247.com for more information.
Support Globespan 24/7 initiatives by sponsoring our programs. Our goal is to bring all sides to the table, and with your help, this can become possible. With your support, we can shape a greater nation together. Contact sales at globespan247.com for more information, or inbox us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Thank you, and welcome back to our viewers. Welcome back to our panelists. So, gentlemen, Ozzy, it seems like I have you alone.
Yeah, I think our friends, they needed a well-deserved bathroom break.
Okay, great. So we gotta get back to them just now as soon as they come. In the meanwhile, I want us to deal with this with the whole notion of corruption. But meanwhile, they're coming back. Ozzy, what are you doing now? You are a well-known Guyanese artist. Your voice has been heard across the length and breadth of Guyana as a personality, and you are now in the corner of the People's Progressive Party Civic.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about what's your support to them like, and why.
Well, my support to the PPP is it goes way back, and this is because I do not allow people to make decisions for me. I am a young black man from Linden Town, and it was expected that I should be PNC just because of those criteria. I do not subscribe to that. I believe I took a look around. I wanted to make a contribution to politics, in my early days, and I did a look around. I watched at the political parties, and one of the things that turned me off completely from the PNC is their bullyism tactics that is still prevalent today. All right, it was I hate bullies. I hate bullies. Anybody can tell you from going to school all my time. I hate bullies.
I think you have. I
All
think
right.
you have Brian Ducking next. You Brian isn't talking.
He's a man like the bully on his, he's projected. He is a man like the bully on his.
How am I operating like a bully? You guys are bullies. You guys are bullies. You guys.
Here's one. Here's one. I normally and Brian, to you in Cleveland. Let me say this. I respect you guys supporting your party as I do respect you, RC, support yours. I do not have a political ball in the game. I do not have a party leniency. I have been calling everybody to speak out, and this goes way back to 2013, 2014, 2015, therefrom. Now, a lot of times people feel, or you, I mean, Brian, you and Cleveland, I hope you don't, but you may feel that I'm asking you questions of the government. But for me, I have been an executive manager all my life, and I operate from the premise of scorecards. I operate from the premise of assessment, what you're doing. I am not assessing this government by comparison to a previous government. I'm assessing this government based on what is expected of a government. So do not feel that my questions are so structured as to be an attack of the government. It is more to assess what a government needs to do, because my fear, as I said in the onset, is what precedence it's setting for another government in the future. Now, I want us to talk about corruption, and I want you guys to go at it. Let's discuss this monster that has been affecting Guyana since its independence to now. And unless it is addressed by the people of this country, it's going to eat us all up. So whoever wants to go first, let's have an open couple minutes. Let's take a 10-minute round, knockout punches, if you will, on this aspect of corruption in Guyana.
Knockout punches. Yeah. So you want to start? I can start. I mean, for a country, first let me set the record straight, Dr. Mahadeo. I agree that it is your right as a citizen to question any government of the day. So I'm a supporter of the PNC, but I think that's your right. And it's a good thing. Maybe more people should do what you're doing. If that happens, the country is going to benefit. So you can ask some of the most searing and searching questions. It doesn't affect me, and that is the responsibility of every citizen, and I'm sure the country will benefit greatly from it if everybody is so politically active and aware, you know. Right, so let me set that straight. Now, on the issue of corruption, sometimes I mentioned, when I was here the last time, I mentioned Mr. Barnum, because I know people had accused Mr. Barnum of untold levels of corruption. They said he was the richest man in the world, and he did this and he did that. Mr. Barnum has died 34 years ago, and if you look around Guyana, 90% of the infrastructure in the country is what he conceptualized and put up, executed on most of the major roads, East Coast, West Bank, Quarantine, MMA, you can call it, he railed them up 30-something years ago, and it's still standing. The previous government, 23 years, almost everything they did fell apart in a very, very short time. The only made
the
no, let me,
stadium that
let me.
Granger went to swear into. That's the
Let me-
stadium.
no,
That fell
no.
apart too. It's
No,
falling apart.
let me. The only major infrastructural accomplishment is the Borbase Bridge, and they took money from NIS. Now let me go on the issue of corruption. For this is an analyst and an economic point of view. For a country
ahead.
to move, you need rule of law with very little corruption, education, infrastructure. The previous government on the corruption and the education part, they were very, very lacking. Like the current government, I'm not saying corruption has been eliminated, but they have made some strides. We have a little more infrastructural development. There is more educational development. Look at the records, look at what's happening in the interior. For the first time in the history of Guyana, a lot of the interior locations, they have roads, they have water. Amerindian kids are getting 5 subjects. That never happened in the history of Guyana for a long time. You have, in fact, an Armenian guy top in the last set of CXC and A levels. That has never happened. So, but I'm not saying corruption is over, but there's a long list of corrupt enterprises on the part of the PPP, and if you could list them, Pradoville, the new GPC, where Barrett Jagdeo, the puppet master of the PPP, sold a lot of state assets to his friends and cronies at next to nothing. GPC, Bitco House, and a long list. Skeldon, the sugar factory, 200 million or 250.
Can generate 1 megawatt.
Gaisuku, and in fact, for the Gaisuku, the PPP responsible for that downturn. And there's one simple reason why Gaisuku is such a mess. I know Sharon Dyer said, oh, the low confidence is because of Gaisuku. But as an analyst from the outside, I can tell you this. You cannot have 17,000 people producing 150,000 tons of sugar at 12 cents a pound. What's the math for that? No, the math for that is that revenue, 8 or 9 billion. The cost, 30 or 40 billion. So there's a recipe for turning Guyana into a basket case. So all the people who saying, but
keep subsidizing,
you would turn Guyana into a basket. So Sharon Das is saying, oh, because of Gaisuku, Guyana would become a basket case in need of IMF help if you only make 8 or 9 billion and you spend 35 to 40 a year.
Ironically, on that subject, however, let me just jump in a bit.
Yeah.
Other countries in the Caribbean and even the Pacific have diversified or even gotten rid of sugar because it's not producing. You can't keep holding on to sugar just for political reasons because there's where your vote's coming from. Should have been diversified a long time ago. I mean, create other kinds of employment for the people. It's not fair to have the people being held in the industry, held to political ransom. It's a long time now this has been happening, and it should.
17,000 people, 150,000. You can't,
But hold on. I want us to talk about corruption, not just
fall on the
sugar.
side of accountability.
Not just sugar.
Government should have accountability. So corruption to the level which it infiltrates government is a problem. But I'm seeing a little bit more of accountability with this one here. Some people get locked up even though the evidence is not there to bring some of them to court.
So
These
I want
guys,
to pick
for
up
example,
right there.
GPC, they gone with the money. The guy who used to work at the office, the president, they got the money and they gone.
I want
Guy
to
from the rice board, all of these guys, what happened to the money?
Just be careful. Just be careful. Don't put us in any legal bind here. Eh?
good. So I wanna say this.
Yeah. See.
We have been hearing it has been a PNC propaganda all up until May 2015 that the People's Progressive Party was the most corrupt in Guyana's history. However, they had promised the people also, myself included, that once they formed the government, they were going to investigate and root out, investigate, charge, bring people responsible for all these corrupt acts that they run around the country telling us about, and they were going to root out corruption. We are presently now heading to 2020. They have made a few charges on corruption. They all fell through because of the lack of evidence. Now, cases and that cement and end your corruption talk, because you preach corruption all the time. You preach that the PPP was the most corrupt in history. You had the evidence before David Granger was. So let me finish. You had the evidence before David Granger became president. All of a sudden he became president and we ain't got no evidence of corruption. Show me the evidence. That's what I want. I want you to bring forward the evidence of the corruption and let us take it from there.
Bill is not corruption.
let us take it from there. No, Pradoville is not corruption because until now,
Undervalued?
undervaluation is not corruption, sir.
That is corruption. That is
sir,
the legal definition of corruption.
Sir,
You sell it below market price.
let me
That is a legal definition of
A
corruption.
number of those files have disappeared.
No,
that also is another PNC. That also is another PNC propaganda of a
base corruption.
when David Granger swore in and became president, they had no money. PAPP gone with all the money. They find money.
If a Mercedes is worth $1 million,
let me
sell you for
finish.
$10.
They find money. They find money to increase minister salary while the PPP left the treasury empty. That was the cry. The PPP thief all the money and gone. They find money to increase minister salary 3- and 4-fold. They found money to throw lavish parties. They found money to build a knock-up thing on
Durban Park?
at Durban Park. That is corruption, my friend.
What is corruption?
And that is not.
No, it's corruption.
Listen,
Mr. Ramatar, no, it was corruption. Ramatar's son.
man, again.
Ramatar's
again,
son.
Show me
One
evidence.
laptop and
Show me
fiber optic.
Show me
$40
the
million.
evidence.
$40 million.
Don't show me the evidence.
$40 million. Ramatar's son. $120,000 a year.
Don't show me the evidence.
No, what I'm
show
saying.
Granger and Kemrat
No,
Ramatar the
what I'm
evidence.
saying.
They're still
What I'm
looking
saying.
for it.
He's still looking for
They're
the
still
No,
file.
looking
hold
for
on,
the
hold
evidence.
on.
Don't look for the funds. Find the evidence.
Ramatar's son.
You guys have failed the country.
No, here it is.
You guys have failed the country.
Let me
you
tell you,
cannot
Dr.
go
Matthew.
to the next elections
Dr.
shouting
Matthew,
corruption
where
because
are
it
the
is
files?
Here this one. Ramatar's
Files
son.
for the files.
Nepotism and corruption. His son with very little qualification. Let me
State
tell
and corruption, no
very
one
little
got to do
qualification
something.
experience.
gonna
Earning
get there.
$120,000
If we talking
a
corruption,
year
David Granger's son-in-law is used to be a minister.
for fiber optic cables that never came through. So where is that? That's not corruption. You put your son.
Sir.
That's Egypt.
Sir,
You
again.
know that is Egypt and those kind of countries.
Again.
Brian,
Bring the files.
let me say something. I received a comment in my inbox that has said that all the governments in Guyana have so far practiced nepotism and cronyism. It's almost like it's an integral part of their manifestos, and the taxpayers suffer in the process. Now, this comment came from somebody that I can't ignore, or else I'll have no dinner tomorrow night. I mean, but it is true. It is something I have spoken to. Look, corruption is not just about taking money blatantly, surreptitiously or not. It is a matter of purposely ignoring the rules and regulations and doing what you will. Cronyism. When presidents decide, when ministers decide that is their husbands and their families and their friends are going to get everything, none of the government has been different. Now you can compare us who was worse and who, but both bad.
Yeah, this one's less.
No, sir.
I'm not saying it's over, but it's less.
There is a minister in the current government, right? The current illegal government, Valda Lawrence. Remember what she said? I am PNC. I only have PNC friends. So if I am giving out jobs, it's only for PNC people. And that's the minister that swore to defend and represent all of Guyana. Nepotism. Let me finish.
Okay, finish.
Nepotism, right? Show me one PPP minister or one PPP president, that had his son-in-law or son sworn in as a minister. Just one.
No, wait.
And we come
Ramatar's son.
Ramatar's son.
His daughter head of the gold board.
His daughter had a semi-autonomous body. It's
that is nepotism and corruption.
It's not.
No, hold on.
Come on, man.
The GRA. There's a guy named my name is Satar.
And family.
He had his son, daughter, cousin, auntie, all of them, all of them working below him. That is blatant corruption.
The GRA again is a semi-autonomous body.
Please, you guys, don't put Globespan on a legal, challenge. Yeah, let's not call people's name. I think what's happened is a lot of these people may have been the DPP and courts might have assessed, but we're private citizens, and especially where the sons and daughters of politicians are concerned, let us keep them out of the discussion because it goes back to the politicians and so forth. So yeah, I mean, Brian, I'll take you up. One of the issues I will forever have the giving away of the spectrum, of the frequencies for television and radio. Another of the challenges I have is the obvious giving of contracts to people within the current government. And let us start with the Durban Park thing. So on both sides there have been real questionable things that has happened. That, listen, I had Anil Nandalal on this program a month ago to discuss corruption. And I asked him this question that I will place to the three of you. You see, one of the things that bothers people in Guyana, every time you speak to the politicians, their response is, what we have done is not legally wrong. My response, it is morally wrong. We all go claim we are good Christians and we are good Hindus and we are good Muslims, but we're only good to get the votes. We forget the religious practice when the corrupt acts are happening. So, has any of the governments of Guyana, past and present, been not guilty of nepotism, cronyism, and corruption?
I think when we talk about guilty, we have to talk about issues that were brought before the court and were litigated in the court, and there was a guilty finding. That's why I'm asking again for the evidence that the PPP was corrupt. I am again asking, if you guys have the evidence, bring the evidence. Don't let us go through this whole thing about pointing fingers and calling names and saying this and saying that, because that was a coalition, APNU, AFC coalition talking point that worked magic in May of 2015. It's not going to work again.
So basically you're
all right,
saying the PPP government is not guilty of any corruption on it.
Corruption?
That's what you're saying.
No, sir, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Godson is there, so there's no corruption.
That's not
No
what I'm
nepotism.
saying.
So
That's not what I'm saying, sir.
No, in
Right?
What are
fact,
you trying to
he
say?
didn't listen to the moderator. Dr. Mahadeo, I think he did not listen to you, because you clearly said, not just legally, morally, morally.
So by deduction,
Why you appoint your son to this position, your daughter to that position? It's not just because you didn't lose in court.
If your
He did not
son
listen
daughter
to one word you told him.
right?
So here-
Especially I can speak for
He did not hear one word you told him.
man. Just don't try to attack me, sir, because you yeah, whatever.
Here is the crux of the matter. It is the popular notion, and Ozzy, I'll say this to you, because majority of the electorate believed that the PPP was not living up to its promises or living up to what it ought to do. It lost the election. At the end of the day, you see, the courts are going to decide something or not, but the electorates will also make a decision, as they will. I mean, the electorates are going to decide on May 2nd who they have better faith in to carry out the mandate and stuff like that. Now, viewers out there feel that all the governments have been corrupt and have not really truly shackled this thing called corruption in a way that people may appreciate. Thus, you have a million small parties that have started up. So let's have a little chat on the small parties and whether you feel they can dent in any appreciable way the traction of the PNC/APNU AFC government and the PPP civic party. Would the small parties, and before I ask you to answer, let me say this, that look, I view the small parties without any negativity. Every person has a right to want to dream to lead this country. Every person has a right to want to come and lead. And it's up to them to have the gumption, to have the vision, and to build the support to do it. So I'm not against small parties. But do you feel that the small parties will affect your core constituencies?
For one, am I on? Yeah. For me, I
Yes.
welcome the smaller parties. I think Ghana's exhausted the polarization politics, ethnic polarity. That has not gotten our country anywhere. I look forward to to a multi-ethnic, multicultural society where we can live peacefully, in peaceful coexistence. And I think for the democratic process to go on, it must have that kind of inclusion. Include all. The smaller parties are going to bring in people of other views, other ethnicities, rather than have this black against Indian as two major parties have been going. There have been attempts by both parties to include people of other races. For example, my good friend over there, gentleman over there, like he just said, people expect him because he born in Linden and black, he's supposed to be PNC. Fine. He's not. And this should be issue-related politics. The democratic process should be more on issues. And I think at this point, Guyana has reached the time to deal with issues. And we should have those smaller parties come with their new vision rather than have a lack of racial polarization.
Correct.
All right.
Correct. Brian, Brian, let's keep you for last. Ozzy, you go first.
I have my own view on the smaller parties. It is also an indication that we lack the ability to find common ground. Why can't why do we have so many small parties in Guyana? And first of all, some of them should not even be called parties, because you see two persons step up and say, oh, we're forming our own party. But show me your membership. That is important. We have Keith Scott. He received a reward as a minister under the APNU, and he's claiming to have a party, but it has no membership. The Justice for All Party, no membership. And tons of these other parties that are coming forward and claiming to be political parties are not really political parties. They are persons with political agenda. Yes, sir.
Yeah. As you remember, the law does not require them to have membership per se. The law requires that they should have enough people to create a list of the representatives of parliament, and they should have so much hundreds of signatories behind them. And as long as they have that, they have the legal right to form a party. What will matter is the votes that they could attract, not the membership.
Correct. And I still have confidence that come nomination day, we will see, based on what you've just said, and I was getting to that, we will see a lot of these startup parties failing to go past the nomination process. Because it is, like I said before, a lot of them are just people who have their own political ideas. I don't want to call names, or may have gotten upset with the leadership of the PNC or the PPP, and they jump out and they want to do their own thing. But I'm saying, why couldn't some of them find a way to gain consensus? And let me say this, I want to interject this, right? And this is going to cement my point. I'm saying we have the Alliance for Change, the AFC. They went into negotiations with the PNC and the APNU about what is gonna, how for a new arrangement, a new Hordmanston Accord. What were they discussing in the arrangements? Who get what? Now, when you're forming coalition government or coming together to form coalition government anywhere else in the world, you go with a platform. You go to discuss ideas. This gentleman is going to come. Oh, I am from the Guyana Ganja Party. I want to work with you guys, but I want to include that we legalize marijuana. This person is going to come. I am from the Christian Party. I want you to make it a sin and a crime for so. They discuss ideas. Let me just finish. However, we see the AFC went into negotiations with the PNC and the APNU, and all they discuss is who get what position. Clearly, it shows that all they're thinking about is self. Nothing was discussed about Guyana moving forward in the negotiations, according to.
So you don't support the idea. Well, you don't think that many of them will survive past nomination day or to nomination day,
right?
And you don't think that they will, if those that survive will create a dent to the PPPC? Do you?
No, of course not. I don't believe that. The PPP support is solid. The PPP is currently Guyana's strongest and most formative political party with more than 60 years of history. And history has shown that every time the PPP is in power, Guyana has moved forward, as opposed to our friends on the other side. All right, so I believe,
So-
let me just interject this, and that is the reason why the current government is scared. We're all running all around with all these fandangos and stuff like that to go to the electorate. You know what, Dr. Mahadeo? Days before, they would someone did a poll and they say that Granger and Moses are the most the people claim that they're most reputable people to form the government and lead Guyana. However, why are they maneuvering? Go to elections. You go to elections when the polls
Gotcha.
are on your side, strongest.
Gotcha. So Brian, I'm going to come to you, but I want to come to you the same question. What do you feel will be the impact of the small parties on the two major parties? But I want you to take it with another angle. And that angle would be that if you have these independent people, you have a Ralph Ramkaran, you have a Robert Badal, you have all of these people, knowing the leadership of the PPP and knowing the leadership of the PNC, they obviously cannot break in that door to get in, because many people feel that the PNC says it's our way or the highway, like what they did with the AFC, or as according to Aussie, or the PPP is having the same thing, it's our way or the highway, so therefore the small party. So I want you to take that angle, but please do so after the next commercial break. Kevin?
Globespan's professional platform is now available for rental. Create your own content, promote your business, and reach hundreds of thousands of viewers in Guyana, United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Globespan gives you the ability to interact with viewers and guests to reach the multitude. Contact sales at globespan247.com for more information.
Support Globespan 24x7 initiatives by sponsoring our programs. Our goal is to bring all sides to the table, and with your help, this can become possible. With your support, we can shape a greater nation together. Contact sales at globespan247.com for more information, or inbox us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Great. So Brian, I want you to take this question up. Let me just repeat for the sake of our viewers and all of us here. So the impact of the small parties on the PPP and the PNC core, but more so taking in mind what one of our viewers said, that the fact is that people of the small parties, a lot of people feel that they cannot get in. There's no way they could get into the doors of the PNC unless you're PNC or unless you're some family or friend, and same thing with the PPP. And a lot of educated and qualified people feel, I mean, the one of the comments is on screen, small parties are formed because the big party leaders do not want to allow qualified people to take up leadership roles. They want to hold on to the powers themselves. How can we move away from this and still hope to keep the PPP and the PNC as the strong parties? Will the small parties eventually start having a dent on their operations?
Well, in my view, I think sometime in the future, not too long from now, the small parties will have a dent in the operation of the larger parties. And in fact, I think in 5 years or so, Guyana would start becoming somewhat more like Israel, where you have a lot of small parties, because a lot of educated Guyanese went overseas and for opportunities and and a number of other reasons, but a lot of them are returning, and I don't think the current configuration of parties is satisfying the needs of the Guyanese, the educated Guyanese in particular. I mean, I'm a strong supporter of the APNU because, in my view, I think the PPP currently configured with Mr. Jagdeo as the puppet master, it's a threat to the democracy if they're in power. I think he's actually a threat to democracy in Guyana. So I have no issue with some of the smaller parties because I think they bring a different perspective, a different vision, and some of that is needed. We can't be doing the same things the same way all the time and expect a different result. So
Right.
I welcome some of the additional insights that the smaller parties bring.
Comment, Dr. Mahadeo.
Well, at least the APNU, the coalition has harnessed the powers of the small parties, right? Cleveland, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah. A further comment on this issue is that I think the two-party system that we've inherited over the years from the, let's say, the British, has failed Guyana. And Guyana is not alone in this because multi-ethnic societies like Guyana, and there are some countries like
Mauritius and
yes,
Malaysia
and all those societies
yeah.
have the same problem. This system has outlived its usefulness, especially where there's two majority races like in Guyana. That helps to enhance the polarization. And with oil coming there now, and I would say a new economy on the rise, it's about time, like Brian has just alluded to, where a number of skilled people will be returning. And politics should, by this time, move to issue-related politics. And this is why I was saying earlier, the smaller parties getting in now would bring a new vision. They need to have that vision. A lot of experiments have been tried for inclusion in the past. Tokenism, adopt a black man in the Indian party, adopt a Kuli man in the black party. Sorry to use those terms derogatory as they are. I'm a product of both. I know what I'm talking about. I was being used in a fashion because of my name. But when people say, oh, wait, I didn't expect you. Yeah, I didn't expect you. So I'm saying this because an experience that I've lived. And this kind of system in our country, for it to progress, has outlived its usefulness. Smaller parties need to interject new vision, newness, modernize. The young people there, I think, are a little bit disillusioned. I get a feedback from the 2015 election because there were expectations that they would have an opportunity to grow, expectations that they would rise in middle management, but there was a glass ceiling because people have come back and block off some of those things too. So smaller parties should help.
Yeah, and I think it's borne fruit because it's the APNU AFC government, to belabor one point, according to popular view, is that it waited a full 4.5 to 5 years before it started firing some of the older people, now telling people, well, we are firing them to bring in youth. So it's like you're making another election promise, right? So, gentlemen, it's been wonderful to have you tonight. We are out of program time. I had a few more things I wanted us to discuss, like the strikes across the sugar estates and stuff like that. We'll certainly do it on another occasion. To the viewers out there, let me just say this. Next Monday, we are hoping to have a former ambassador to the US join us in a discussion that will take us back to the all-important issue of oil and gas and its plethora of discussion points. These upcoming elections, trust me, believe me with this, these upcoming elections in Guyana will be a setting stage for a massive growth in Guyana. Listen to this. The next national budget we'll read in the parliament will actually be spending oil money. And so the next election is critical for this country. The politicians can either get it right or get it horribly wrong. It's we, the people of this country, that has to stand up and stop this nonsense with nepotism and cronyism. We should not care about racial politics, about religious politics, or any of those kinds of things. What must matter to us is the growth of this country so that our sons and daughters can feel that there is a country here for them. Amen. Our foreparents came to this country for us to do something with it, not for us to squander it away and give it away to friends and families. So next week we're going to have a discussion with Mr. Neil Parson hopefully on this oil and gas issue, and then next week Wednesday we're going to have another political talk, and I'll be keeping you updated, viewers, on where it's going. Gentlemen, 30 seconds each. Starting with you, Cleveland. Final thoughts.
Well, first of all, I do appreciate these two gentlemen being here expressing their views, and for you two, for bringing us together. I have great hope for the future of Guyana. I mean, with new economy, island stream, let's hope that everyone benefits.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, thank you for having me here, Dr. Mahadeo. I have great hope for Guyana, especially if the PPP doesn't win the upcoming election, because I think Dr. Jagdeo is a threat to the democratic process in the country. I welcome all the small parties with a different vision and a different views and a different perspective. So I'm happy about that.
Thank you. Ozzy, 30 seconds, final
All right,
comments. You don't have to respond to the gentleman. You're on time.
You know I will. History has shown that once the PPP is in power, Guyana has performed at its best. And I want every Guyanese to take a look around at your situation prior to 2015 and your situation now, and then go out and vote on March 2nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all, gentlemen. It's been a wonderful discussion tonight. To our viewers out there, have a good night. Thanks to Globespan 24x7, Mohar Singh, Devin, and Kumar. Thanks to our sponsors. Good night, everyone.